Alright, so what actually gets your pulse racing? Like, is it the classic, oh fuck, something's chasing me, feeling as you're sprinting through some creepy corridor? Or are you more into those games that just mess with your head? The ones where you're not even sure what's real anymore and everything feels super unsettling? Because here's the thing, horror games aren't all just the same old jump scares. It's like an endless battle of suspense and adrenaline, and every game is trying to terrify you in its own way. You've got your gory survival stuff, your nihilistic psychological trips, and those action-packed ones when you're basically just fighting for your life non-stop. There's a type of scary out there for pretty much everyone. But what are all these different types, and how do they actually manage to make us jump or feel that proper sense of dread? And honestly, which one is the king of making you want to sleep with the lights on? Well, grab your blanket, because today we're diving headfirst into the shadows. We're going to break down all of the different types of horror games, see what makes them live up to the popular horror genre, and hopefully you'll find your next go-to game for when you're bored. Getting straight into the ranking board, we're going to go down here, and obviously I've chosen The Last of Us. So what is this likely going to be? Well, it's going to be survival horror. Survival horror takes the idea of jumping, running around, and the survival element, and giving you something to survive against that isn't in the real world. You could argue that real life is a survival horror, and trying to earn a salary and stuff like that is surviving in the real world, for example. But the main reason I've chosen The Last of Us is because you're set in this apocalyptic environment where you've got these fungus zombies that are hunting you down constantly. You've got bandits. You have to scavenge for resources, weapons, and food to survive. And there's not really much pleasantries in this. I know I said pleasantries, stupid word. But there's not really much joy in this universe. So that's kind of what the general gist of survival horror is. I would say that there's a difference between survival and survival crafting and building, like 7 Days to Die. 7 Days to Die is technically, you could say it's the same general basis of The Last of Us, because it's a zombie-specific survival game where you're being hunted by a predator, the zombies, and you can't just buy things, or maybe you can, but you've got to scavenge and do the general survival things. But in 7 Days to Die, you can build, you can craft. I mean, you can craft in The Last of Us, but there's more in-depth crafting in 7 Days to Die, and you can explore an actual proper open world. So I'd say it can be split into its different degenerates, but I'm going to say this is probably the best example. So in terms of where I would rank it, I think generally speaking, one of the most popular games or genres on Steam right now is survival crafting. Take horror into that, it just adds an element to the game that gives you a reason to have to do things, because you don't want to die, you don't want to be hunted down, for example. And I personally quite enjoy... What? Oh. Oopsie. I personally quite enjoy these types of games because there's always something to do. And it's not just one set path. I mean, in this one it kind of is. But in other games, it's not just one set path. You're given a list of things to do. And the challenge is you're deciding how to prioritize your time to spend things on what will help you to live longer, pretty much. So I'm going to probably put this not in S tier, although maybe it is S tier. We might be starting straight off with an S tier. I will actually put an S tier for now, because almost all of the popular games that are horror, or majority of them, are survival games. I'm trying to think of something that could be like a really recent one. But this one is like multiple seasons made out of it, so it's good if they're making movies off of it. And overall, it's just the fun. You can get so much out of however much you're paying for this. Let's say I know this is not the price of The Last of Us, but if you're paying £20 for £50 for a game that is a survival horror, you're gonna get much more out of your money than if you're paying for a linear game, where you're spending £5, but you're only getting an hour's playtime. With a survival game, you could be getting, you're spending £50, but you could be getting 100 hours out of it. So I would consider that S tier. And also, being given your own agency when going over to survival decisions activates that monkey part in your brain, which is like survival and being primitive and, going back to primitive times and having to think for yourself without much help. Other survival games are a little bit unrealistic in that sense and unrewarding because they give you the task to do like find 10 items, stop the antagonist. But in this, it's like, you have so many different things to think about: food, water, the zombies, bandits, as I mentioned earlier. So overall, that's going in S tier. The next one, I've chosen this one purely because this is one of the best ones I've played of this type of genre. This one is psychological horror. Now, psychological horror takes the physical idea of horror and transfers it into the mental. There's only one thing scarier than seeing a zombie, and that's the zombie being in your brain. Obviously, that is not what the actual case is. No, we're going to talk about it first. We're not going to talk about it. We don't want to jump ship or jump the gun. So with this game in specific, the character's mental state slowly deteriorates all throughout the game. And obviously there's a lot of very sensitive topics that I'm not going to discuss in this video, but this game focuses a lot on that, and they do it very well. And they show how it makes the player feel like, they're in the game. It's an immersive game. That's the first step. Once you're immersed, you then start messing with the player. You put things in places that weren't there previously, which makes the player feel, oh, that's not right, and makes them start questioning themselves. Specifically in this game, when you die, you respawn, and it's kind of one of those, oh, was it all a dream kind of scenarios. In terms of just overall psychological horror, I think this is a very popular one, and a lot of people like the idea of being scared because they fail to understand something, or their mental state, which is usually quite secure. And, the idea of the fact that we know all our surroundings and we know what's going to happen is very comforting. So when that's thrown out the window, that's where the horror comes from. So in terms of that, I wouldn't say, to be fair, what? Okay, there's two now. I wouldn't say it's the same as a survival game, purely because I'm a big fan of, building and the actual element of surviving. This one maybe perhaps is a bit more modernized. Obviously in the past, maybe it wasn't considered as much because psychology didn't exist. I'm saying this is like 100 years ago, for example. So this is more of I guess it's not recent, but it's a newer kind of horror. So I'm going to put in A tier, and we're going to make it smaller. I'm going to put in A tier because psychological horror, while it's popular, I wouldn't necessarily say it has the same breadth as a survival game where there's so many different paths you choose from. And with this, there's no agency. You are given a bunch of input into what you see, feel, and hear, and you try to think on that input, but the input is deceptive. So whatever you think might not be what actually, it doesn't correspond to real life, which is, yes, it's terrifying, but it also makes for, I guess, quite a linear gameplay, and you only really understand what's going on towards the end of the game. So if you're not ready to commit 2 to 3 hours to play the story, to get the ending, I wouldn't say it's as worth it. But when you reach that ending, it is a phenomenal, I can't say the word. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. So that's why I'm putting that in A. Now, as you can see, I've chosen Doom. Doom you wouldn't necessarily think of as a horror game, but perhaps you would think of it as an action horror game. Action horror games they contain all different elements of horror. There's something scary, the demons. But in action horror, you are given the opportunity to fight back pretty much. In a survival horror game, you're given very limited, like it's specifically in The Last of Us, you're not given much ammo. In Doom, I'm fairly sure it's an infinite. I've not played it that much, but from what I remember when I did play it, it was you get infinite ammo, and you have a shotgun, and you're playing as Doom, or not Doom. What's his name? Doom Guy. There we go, Doom Guy. So overall, I personally would say action horror does not classify as horror because it's just a shooter, pretty much. you're just shooting demons that are, yes, technically scary, but things become a lot less scarier when you're holding a shotgun. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say on action horror. As a genre in general, action games, shooting games, they're great. They're a little bit oversaturated, but they're overall quite good. Why is it not? I need it to go above that. Okay, it's just not doing that. Okay, 1 second, guys. Bring to front. There we go. I don't know why. I'm pressing the button. It's just not working. I'm probably going to put this at about... so in terms of horror, is this really horror? Is this really horror? One of the biggest parts that makes the game horror is that you're very vulnerable, and your vulnerability is what makes the game scary. Again, you're given a shotgun and you're playing as pretty much immortal demigod. It's not the scariest experience. But I am not saying Doom is a terrible game in any sense. It is a brilliant game, brilliant genre, and got a great soundtrack. Can we just state that? But as a horror game, I'm not saying it's up there. This is going to be in the thumbnail, and people go look at it and say, "Oh, he's put Doom as a D." But maybe that could be good for watch time. I don't know. Moving on. So obviously there's FNAF here, or Five Nights at Freddy's. But what would that translate to? Would that be a psychological game? Some people even say it's a survival game. I'm pretty sure the actual creator himself says it's a survival game. I'm actually going to be using Five Nights at Freddy's to classify jump scare horror. So jump scare horror, where's the horror of this game come from? Well, you could argue the story's pretty messed up about the kids being stuffed in suits. That's not great. That's not great. But in terms of where the factor comes from, I would say it's a jump scare horror. Because the way you don't die in this game, you get jump scared in this game and it resets you. And the big, jump and the fear comes from being jump scared. And this jump scare is heightened by the fact there's a nice build-up of suspense. I don't know what it's called. The sound of specifically the first game, the sound of the fan, that's white noise, just slowly, just staying in the background for the whole time. And then when it goes silent, I clicked there, I don't know if you heard that. When it goes silent, it feels very tense. And all of a sudden, really big noise, frantic visuals, it's a jump scare. Now, I am very biased because FNAF is a great game, but overall, jump scare games, very oversaturated. Incredibly oversaturated. It's just not working. I don't understand why not. Why is it not doing this? Okay, we're going to have to do this with every single one now. I'm very sorry. Where would I put it, though? Because jump scares, they're terrifying when you get jump scared properly, but because the market's so oversaturated with them now, you can kind of expect the jump scares, and if you really look at it, it's just a character shaking on your screen, and a loud noise. And while one of the primal fears is loud noises, speaking of that, actually, this does cover a primal fear, loud noises. But then I guess all of these games could technically do that. I'm putting it between A and B. Not leaving it there, but I'm just thinking which one it could be in. Do I think it's better than psychological horror? No, because I think it's less artistic. But FNAF is the GOAT. I do really like FNAF. I'm going to leave it in... I can't leave it in B, it's FNAF. But I don't want to put it in A because it's not good enough. We're going to put it at the top of B for now, and we'll maybe move it around a bit later. Because I think a lot of people can argue that, when you get jump scared in a game, it's kind of a cheap way of scaring someone. Because, you've not got all of this different storyline. In my opinion, the most valuable kind of fear is the one where you figure it out. Nothing realistically happens to you, but you figure something out in your head that is terrifying. Like the sense someone's watching you, for example. You don't know someone's watching you, but the fact that you're thinking someone's watching me right now, blah, 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 that's quite a terrifying feeling. So yeah, I'm going to put jump scares in B because it's very oversaturated. People use jump scares as a quick way of scaring someone, but once you're jump scared, the horror kind of dissipates. And when you get and every time you get jump scared, the jump scares just become less scary each time. There is actually a game, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a game that came out a while ago on Unreal Engine 5. It's very realistic, and obviously it measures your voice, and the whole game is just jump scares. I think that's a little bit different because you have jump scares make you shout, and the fact that if you shout you die, I think that's quite good, but that's besides the point. Moving on. So, Dead by Daylight. This is an interesting one because I've chosen, for what this topic is, you could also argue that if you take away from the killers, it's just another survival horror game. But I've decided to call this one as to show this one as the reverse horror genre, which basically means you play as the thing that is causing the fear. So you play as the killers. The killers are the antagonists. The killers are the things you should be scared of. And personally, I think it's not 100% a reverse horror game because 50% of it is playing as the killers, but the other 50% is playing as the survivors, which is running away. But as the killer, you are the thing that's causing the fear. You are technically, you could argue that you're the horror element of the game. And that's what reverse horror is. Now, that's a pretty simple description. Reverse horror is you are the horror, is what I would say. In terms of rankings, I'm not gonna lie, this isn't really horror because, like with the Doom issue, if you're given the opportunity where you're, but realistically, Doom Guy is the one that it should be terrifying to the demons because of how easy he can kill them and how much of a threat he is. When you are the threat, it's not that terrifying. Obviously, it's different for survivors. We're assuming we're just looking at the killers. I think this one is also going to go in D because reverse horror, in my opinion, is not horror. It's more action because you're the threat, and when you are the threat, you don't really have much to be scared of. So we're gonna move on from that one. To be honest, it's definitely going below Doom, in my opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of Dead by Daylight. And just overall, reverse horror as a genre is not particularly that interesting to me. I would happily play if it was an action game, but it's not. It's a horror game. Now, as you can see, I've selected these two. These two do kind of intertwine. In fact, they really intertwine. So it could literally be like this, and there's cut. But let's just move on and stop waffling. So, Hobbies Playtime. It's a pretty simple one. There's a very new one. Puzzle horror. Puzzle horror is a type of game where to escape, you have to complete a set of puzzles. And then the horror element can be pretty much anything. In Poppy's Playtime, it's all of the toys are quite terrifying. They come to life and they're killing everyone. And to escape the factory, you have to solve a series of puzzles. This one, as a game itself, ignore horror, ignore everything else. As a game, these are very strong games and they usually have very interesting mechanics or game designs. Because puzzles as themselves, as I said in a previous video, are one of the things that drives games and makes them interesting. You're represented with a challenge that you have to do something that requires cognitive thinking, cognitive functions to complete. And the feeling of completing that challenge is the reward and the thing that makes you feel good and the reason that you play the game. Puzzle horror takes it a step further by adding something to fill in the gaps. With a normal puzzle game, you complete a puzzle, you move on. In a puzzle horror game, you're either trying to complete the puzzle to escape something, which adds tension and gives you more motivation to do that thing. And in between those puzzles, you're given something to be afraid of and something else to be interested in. So I think Poppy's Playtime is obviously incredibly popular. So we know that this kind of game this genre is popular. So I'm probably going to put this in again. I should have done this before again. I'm probably going to put this in A because the overall game design and how interesting this can be to players and it covers the core reasoning that people play games, which is to, to get a good feeling or a feeling of interest. But maybe Poppy's Playtime isn't the best example. There are a lot of games out there that do puzzle horrors really well, but I think Poppy's Playtime, it's one of the most popular. It's one of the most recent. And we're still waiting on... Has Chapter 4 come out? Chapter 3 was Cat. Chapter 4 was... Oh, yeah, Doey. So Chapter 5 is the last one. I'm very excited to see the end of Poppy's Playtime, to be fair. It really is an interesting game to me, because what happens when it's over? Does that open then the floodgates to other ones, or is the mascot horror scene dead? Which actually brings me on to the next one. Garten Ban. You'll never guess what this one's going to be. Mascot horror. Mascot horror is a very new type of game that comes from a relatively old type of game. This is technically... FNAF is technically a mascot horror game. It's taking these child-friendly... I say they're child-friendly... childlike toys, characters, and converted them into something horrifying. It plays on things like nostalgia. For example, when we were younger, we went to pizzerias and stuff. Okay, I didn't, but I'm sure some kids in America did. I mean, I'm pretty sure Chuck E. Cheese is an actual place in America, which I didn't know when I was 10. I thought it was just a fictional place, but no, I went to America, and there one was. I was like, Mum, are we gonna die? I don't want to be turned into a pizza. Can we please not go there? And luckily we didn't, but obviously that's what FNAF was. But was it based? I don't know. Anyway, Garten Ban. I'm not gonna lie, it's got a very bad rap. It's really not the peak of gaming, as you can see. But you know, I played the games. I enjoyed the games. I think it's a very low form of gaming, but as a game that is made by two people, I think it is okay. If a AAA company made something like this, it would be atrocious. But when you take into perspective the idea that this was made... Sorry, this is based around the game. We're talking about mascot horror. Mascot horror in general is, as I said, you take a childlike figure and you turn it into something horrifying. It plays on feelings of nostalgia and a sort of a sense of false security. Sense of false safety? A full sense of security. There we go. I was trying to find the word order there. And in that sense, I think the mascot horror does very well, but it only targets, I think, more recent generations. Like, I'm generation, I've not got a fucking clue. But I'm one of the early generations, as are most people who play games, video games now, because video games, I mean, they're not new, like, you know, 1980s, you're going to be having those arcade games, but in terms of, like, modern gaming, for example, mascots come from relatively modern TV shows. I'm trying to think of one now, like, SpongeBob isn't really a mascot horror, but it could be. I'm really trying to think, I guess Toy Story is Poppy's Playtime and Garten Ban. Toy Story turned horror is, I guess, what you could describe the Maz. And then animatronics are also a very new thing. In fact, animatronics are incredibly new. No, they're not. They had them in the... Anyway, mascot horror, because it targets a more limited audience, you could argue that it's only, you know, past the 2000s. I mean, you can have people from before that, but I'd say it's focused on the 2000s and plus, 2010s plus. For Garten Ban, it's like 2-year-old, maybe not 2-year-olds. I played it was great. So clearly it's targeted for everyone, all ages. But I'm going to put mascot horrors in a B. Keep them all nice and close together. I mean, this kind of shows how all these games are, because they're relatively close together on the rankings. Because it feels like I'm ranking the games and not the genres. I need to keep this is... I'm ranking them based on genre, by the way. So imagine it's like action horror. It's like that. Just to clarify. Now, moving on to the final three, because that was a lot of waffle. Hunting Spider. What possible game could this be for? Or what possible genre could this be for? I don't actually think this is a classified genre on Steam, but I would consider it a genre because so many games use it. This is Phobia Horror, which is a bit of a weird sentence because a phobia is an irrational fear, so it feels a bit weird putting the two together. But phobia horrors are horror games that take a irrational fear, such as spiders. This game, I've chosen, I couldn't find the game, a picture from the game, but Huntsman is a new game that is on itch.io and itch.io, and it's literally just a hunting spider hunting you, and you have to kill it. And it takes the general gameplay of collect items to win the game. but it does it so well because it's just taking something that lots of people have an irrational fear of and will just be terrified from its presence alone. Doesn't need to be complex, it's just its presence is terrifying. There's another game where it's literally a shark in a pool. Again, that's a phobia because it's an irrational fear. A shark is not going to be in a swimming pool. But it's terrifying because this is the presence alone and the thought alone is an irrational fear that people have, and that makes it horror. Doesn't matter what the rest of the game is. It's a horror because it's irrational fear, which is horror. Other examples could be, now I'm trying to think. You have the shark one. I'm trying to think what any game that is a phobia. We're just gonna stick with those two now because I can't really think anything else currently. But any game that takes a phobia, like fear of heights, for example. I know there's some movies like that. There's the movie where you're really high up in the sky. I can't remember what it's called. We're gonna call it Satellite. But yeah, phobia horrors. I mean, I'd say they're pretty effective because as soon as you enter the game, you should be scared because it's something that is terrifying. But then it feels like a C because you're literally just getting a spider, give it a nav mesh, and there's your game. But then the one with the shark in the pool is a lot better. I'm going to put phobia horrors in C because I think whilst they are really effective, it's a very shallow concept, I think. Like why are we scared of them? I don't know. You know? It's literally, I don't know, but I'm scared of it. A lot of irrational fears, actually, I said this in one of my videos, irrational fears come from usually a childhood incident, where your brain has a bad experience with something and it creates a defensive measure where you should be scared of it. For what reason? It might have been for survival in the Stone Ages, like if you get brushed by a leaf and it will cause you to lose your arm because it's a really infectious leaf or something like that, then you'll get a phobia of leaves because your brain is like, okay, leaves are dangerous, never go near them again. Same with like fear of water, fear of spiders. I think the fear of okay, I'm not going to scream because I don't like it. Anyway, moving on. Last two. Call of Cthulhu. What Cthulhu? What could Cthulhu be? Well, it's cosmic horror. Cosmic horror. When I was looking at the games that were cosmic horror, it was mainly games that were like The Sunken City or Sinking City, Call of Cthulhu, games that are specific to the character of Cthulhu, but that's not very good quality. I wouldn't say that cosmic horror in games, I think, is incredibly hard to do, because to play a game you need to understand it, but with cosmic horror, the horror comes from you not being able to understand something because it is so beyond you, which then kind of contradicts the gameplay aspect of it. So I think actually for cosmic horror games, currently there aren't many games that have a good gameplay loop alongside the cosmic horror storyline, because it's very easy to, or not easy, you can make a cosmic horror storyline to a game, but to make the game itself cosmic horror without a cosmic horror storyline, and like just using mechanics and environment stuff, I think that's very hard to do, because again, to play a game, you need to understand it, and if you don't understand it, it's not going to be a very fun game. So I'm going to put cosmic horror in games. I love cosmic horror, but in games, I think there is nothing yet that's been released that has solved the problem of these two factors like contradicting. So now it's looking a little bit bottom heavy. No, actually it's pretty even, depending on where I put this one. If I put this one like C, then it's going to be really even. I'm surprised I've not put any others in S. So I'll move these around at the end, I think. But finally, I've chosen Phasmophobia. Repo is also a good example of this, a very good example of this. Online horror. Online horror is any horror game that basically you can play with friends. So this could be Dead by Daylight is an online horror game. Last of Us is not, it's single player, isn't it? Okay, so the only one on this board is Dead by Daylight, which is online horror. But it's horror that you can share. It's a feeling of horror that you can share. These games are based around working together, and you're experiencing the same thing that scares you all as a group. And it's kind of a collective feeling. It makes the game a little bit less scary because having other people around you is a sense of comfort. But it just generally makes the game more entertaining, I think, because as a game, because when you're working with other people, it's kind of shared responsibility to do whatever tasks there are to beat the game. So you are given the chance to just enjoy the horror element of it. And also, it is funny seeing your friends' reactions to horror elements and being scared. I mean, most people play together because they like the community aspect, the social aspect. But just seeing your friends be scared is overall a really fun game. Now, I've got it hovered at C because as a horror game, they're not the most scary things because, again, you're with people. It's a sense of comfort. But considering how well Phasmophobia did, how well Repo did, and how well most online and how well Dead by Daylight does, it is clear that as a genre in itself, online horror is extremely popular, but purely because of how entertaining it is to see other people, see your friends be afraid. So that is going to go in S tier. It's one of the most popular. It's one of the most popular genres. It is one of the most money-making genres. Most AAA companies, unless they're doing single-player games, will aim for multiplayer because that's something that's very hard for indies to do. As an indie myself, I will try to never touch multiplayer because it looks horrifying, which is not to say that you shouldn't touch something, but I don't want to sink loads of time into it and it produce nothing. So this is... And so I get it nice and on the screen for everyone. Okay, so this is the rankings. What do I think about the rankings now they're all in place? It feels a little bit weird. No, this makes sense because it's I don't know. Okay, that's great. Really great commentary there. I feel having Poppy's playtime, I know it's obviously this is the genre, but having that above FNAF is what is this, a jump scare? To be fair, it is a jump. This FNAF in the sense that it's a jump scare game goes here, but in the sense there's a mascot here. So I think mascots are scarier than jump scares. No, actually, absolutely not. We're gonna move it to here. I'm gonna say that jump scare games are actually, yes, while it is a cheap scare, it's still effective because it scares people. Whereas a mascot game, only because it's been so... Okay, that's not happening. Because it's been so... Wait, hang on. Wasn't Poppy's playtime meant to be puzzle? It was meant to be puzzle. Yeah, let's just move those back around. Sorry, this order is actually completely right. This is the mascot. Obviously, this is what I mean. They are all mascot games. This represents puzzle games. Puzzle games are 100% more in-depth and more entertaining than jump scare games. Jump scare games are still definitely better than mascot. So yeah, I think overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm pretty happy with this scoreboard. Scoreboard? I don't know what the word is. Also, I would like to ask just you guys in general, do I need to add more to this? Because obviously we've done 10. And I think 10 is pretty good because we've spent like some of the, we spent like 5 minutes on like one of these. Was it mascot? I think it was mascot. Yeah. This was like a 10-minute section. I don't know what the length of the recording is right now, but we're going to find out together. But this has been really fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. And yeah, let me know if I should do, say, 20 next time. Because currently it's a little bit, there's not much to assess against. I know I've watched this guy called The Kill Pete Strategy, and he's doing a ranking system for all the different maps he's played. His rank has like hundreds, or at least 100 maps on it, 100 like things to put on it. So I'm thinking that could be cool to do, but I don't know if I have anything that I want to spend 100, like 2 fucking million hours on it. So, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm aiming to get the second devlog done for next week because the save system was horrendous. I hated it. I am going to struggle to ever do that again. But it's done. The save system is working. You can now save your... I can talk about this in the devlog. But currently, I cannot release devlog or I cannot start a devlog yet because there is one final thing I need to do to get the game into a proper state show, and that is going to be giving it ending. I'm currently giving it an ending, and in fact, you know what? We can show a little sneak peek. Okay, right. It doesn't look great. But this is going to be part of the ending. Can I show it in a better light? No, it's because it's got the thing on. I mean, that's kind of better. Yeah, this is currently, this is the Switch. So this was a cheeky little sneak peek at the, I might even remove, no, I won't remove this. But it's going to do something when you, this is a button, as you can see. Okay, you can't see up there because I probably cut the screen, but it's a button, you press it, and it was going to basically end the game for you and complete the game. So yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching. Sorry if any of this has been waffly. I hope people enjoy, do people enjoy waffle content? I don't know, people enjoy a lot of things, so yeah. Thank you very much for watching. I will shut up now. Have a great rest of your day, and make sure, if you want to, join the Discord. It is I think it's a very entertaining place, and it's just good to build a community. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys later.